I want to thank my patron supporters who are helping me to make more videos more often. If you'd like to become a patron supporter, please go to patreon.com/TJR, the original. Thank you for watching this video. In an attempt to avoid copyright notices, I will avoid using any clips from the original audio recording of the song Little Dreamer as recorded by Van Halen on Van Halen 1. Little Dreamer is the 9th track on Van Halen's debut self-titled album. I am hard-pressed to find anyone who won't agree that from start to finish, this is one hell of a stellar rock album and one hell of a stellar debut. When it was released, even the most jaded of music critics found it hard not to stand up and take notice, even if some did temper their praise with varying degrees of cynicism. And it's hard not to take notice. There is certainly a lot to be said about Eddie Van Halen's still startling, even to this day, guitar virtuosity displayed on all 11 of the album's tracks. There's also David Lee Roth's dark and dirty vocals, and of course the locked-in-the-pocket groove of drummer Alex Van Halen and bassist Michael Anthony. Not to mention the band's aggressive, balls-to-the-walls attitude on all 11 songs. But there is also more that needs to be said about the subtle influences of blues, jazz, R&B, and other elements of ethnic music tucked into the band's speed of light metal. One of the best examples of this is track 9, Little Dreamer. Little Dreamer is the closest that the band comes to a ballad on this debut album. But I think it's a mistake to call this song a ballad. I call it their Melancholy Blues. The song's lyrics connect with an inner sense of melancholy sadness, born from the pain caused by the rejection of others. I will be discussing the lyrics of this song in more detail, but first, I want to talk a bit about the chord choices Eddie Van Halen uses in Little Dreamer. That's the opening riff to Little Dreamer by Van Halen. Now the chords Eddie is using are a C minor 7th and a G minor 7th. I'm going to play this now without distortion. Let's just play the chords themselves. That's the C minor 7th, and here's the G minor 7th. I should mention that Van Halen tuned down a half step, which lowers the pitch and thus changes the actual names of the chords being discussed. But as far as the guitar fretboard positions are concerned, the chords are C minor 7th and G minor 7th. When you hear these without distortion, you could hear the whole jazz, blues, funk vibe that these chords have. Playing the guitar clean, I could hit all the notes in these chords and let them ring out. However, the moment you put the distortion on, you have to be very careful in how you play these chords, otherwise they sound like mush. Eddie Van Halen intrinsically knew this, so he was very careful in how he voiced these types of chords while using distortion. This is why he plays Little Dreamer like this. Notice how he separates the treble notes from the bass note. Like so. Versus playing it like this. Noise, mush, it's not good. Getting back to the chord shapes. When Van Halen premiered their first album in the late 70s, they gave rise to a huge amount of bands that we would later refer to as the hair metal bands of the 80s. But one of the things that I think that Van Halen had over a lot of those hair metal bands was the fact that Eddie was using guitar shapes that were normally reserved for more blues, jazz, and funk playing, such as with Little Dreamer. Now let's take this over to the piano. I'm going to play the same two chords I played on guitar just a moment ago here on the piano. That's the C minor 7th to the G minor 7th. From there it goes to a B flat 5 to an F5. These are like those guitar power chords. Then after that, it will go back to the C minor 7th and the G minor 7th, the B flat 5 and the F5. Then come the a cappella oohs, and then we have an interesting chord here. We have an F minor 7th that we use. Oh, so sad and dark and bluesy and jazzy sounding. Beautiful chord. To a G, which is very startling coming right after that. And so we've got that, let me talk about your cold when you were headed for the sky. But you were young and bold, and baby, didn't that change with a wink of your eye? Now no one's talking about those crazy days gone by. No one talks about the times you cried. Then we have the oohs. Ooh, little dreamer. That's where we have that F sharp minor 7th. Yeah, yeah. That's where you have the G. When you play it on piano like this and just play it soft and slowly, you really bring out the melancholy blues of this song. And I'll give you a little demonstration now. Let me talk about your cold when you were headed for the sky. But you were young and bold, and baby, didn't that change with a wink of your eye? Now no one's talking about those crazy days gone by. No one talks about the times you cried. Ooh, little dreamer. Personally, I would love to hear a great female soul singer perform this song in the style that I'm playing it in right now. I think that would be awesome to hear. I want to take a moment now and talk about the lyrics, but also I want to discuss what I guess I can best describe as an incongruity that I've only just recently discovered while researching for this video. As the song's narrator, David Lee Roth appears to be talking about a young teenager, obviously in high school, who has very big dreams, but nobody believes in him or her, with the exception, of course, the song's narrator, which is David Lee Roth. In fact, Roth could actually be talking about himself. I want to read the opening verse here. They may talk about you cold when you were headed for the skies, but you were young and bold, and baby, didn't that change with a wink of your eyes? Now no one's talking about those crazy days gone by. No one talks about the times you cried. And then the chorus reads, Little Dreamer. Some of these lyric websites say a little dreamer, some just say Little Dreamer. Now, the reason why I presume that the character that the narrator is talking about is in high school is because of this second line of lyric here. And then they went and they voted you least likely to succeed. That is very much calling out to high school yearbooks, where they would actually vote most likely to succeed. This, of course, would have been publicly done in the high school yearbook. Privately, though, you might see your fellow students vote you least likely to succeed, though they wouldn't publish that in the yearbook, but privately behind your back, they might do that. Being a teenager with big dreams and having a feeling as though the rest of the world doesn't believe in you is, or at least was during the time that I was growing up, a pretty common attitude that I encountered. So that's why I feel like this main character here that's being talked about in the song is in high school. And once again, it could have very well have been just David Lee Roth himself, talking about himself, playing both the narrator and the main character of the song. And then the lyric goes on, I had to tell them, baby, you are armed with all you need. Now, clearly, our narrator is on the side of the song's main character, which is the Little Dreamer. But then there's the final line in this lyric here that I'm going to read here. First, I just want to tell you how I always read it. Back in the day when the album came out, there was no lyric sheet included with the album. And I always assumed that Roth was saying, seems no one's talking about those crazy days gone past. Weren't they amazed when you were great at last? That's what I always thought he was saying in this song whenever I would listen to it. Now, when I look at all these lyric websites, they all say this. Seems no one's talking about those crazy days gone past. Weren't they amazed when you were really last? And they put a question mark after it. Weren't they amazed when you were really last? I can't make sense of that. Why would all the surrounding individuals that went to high school with this young individual who did not believe that this character, the Little Dreamer, would ever succeed, why would they be amazed if he was really last? Saying that the Little Dreamer is really last to me implies that the character did not succeed. The character, the Little Dreamer, lost. And that wouldn't amaze all these people who didn't believe in our main character. That would be what they would expect. To me, it makes more sense that he would say, weren't they amazed when you were great at last? This gives it a triumphant conclusion. And after I looked at these lyric pages, I thought about this. Could I be hearing this wrong? Did I hear it wrong all these times? I went and played it back, and I listened real carefully. And I noticed that if I listened to it, and if I sang in my head really last at the time that he sings that line, it does sound like that. But then when I played it back, and if I sang great at last in my head while listening to it, it sounded like that too. Now, here's the thing with a lot of these lyric websites, is that if the first person that transcribes this to the internet hears it wrong, puts it on the internet, all the other lyric websites just cut and paste and copy the same thing. Now, once again, the original album has no printed lyrics. I'm not saying they're all wrong and I'm right, but I am perplexed by this. Why would Roth sing really last? It just doesn't make sense to me. The song, from a storytelling perspective, makes sense when you say great at last, because then you have this triumphant ending. Now, you might say, well, he's saying, weren't they amazed when you were really last? Because it was supposed to be a tragic ending. This person never achieved their dreams. But once again, it doesn't make sense to say that all these other people who didn't believe in our main character would be amazed that our character did not succeed, because they all voted that person least likely to succeed. So it wouldn't make sense that they would be amazed by that. That's what they would expect. Now, I did a little more research, and I discovered a couple of things. On one website that discussed this song in brief, I read a comment by someone who said that he went and saw David Lee Roth live. This was during the Sam and Dave show, when Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth were touring together. And he said that David, quote, changed the lyric to where it said, "Weren't they amazed when you arrived at last?" Now, quite possibly, David Lee Roth didn't change the lyrics. It might have been that that is what he was saying the whole time, and I got it wrong, and the people who did these lyric websites got it wrong because they heard it wrong. Saying, "Weren't they amazed when you arrived at last?" would make sense coming from the perspective of the narrator of the song, because it would give it once again that triumphant ending. Until I hear otherwise, whenever I listen to this song, it's going to end with, "Weren't they amazed when you were great at last?" As balls to the walls metal as Van Halen 1 is, I think that if you listen carefully, you can definitely hear the blues, the jazz, and the R&B influences. And I think it's very strongly pronounced within Little Dreamer. Also, the song's lyrical themes of having big dreams but feeling like the outcast that no one believes in, I think are very universal, especially when you're at that high school age range. High school is a very impressionable time of growth for anyone, and during that time you are surrounded by the same group of peers for 4 years. And Little Dreamer's musical and lyrical themes are filled with a sense of melancholy sadness, born out of the pain and rejection created by those who surround us, in this case, your high school peers, during what is, for most of us, one of the most impressionable periods in our lives. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Please leave a comment. As always, if you like what I'm doing, be sure to click like, click subscribe, and smash the bell notification icon so you can know when I release new videos. Everybody, I want to thank you for watching. I hope you all stay safe and healthy. Bye-bye.